Two members of the squad have gotten themselves banned from Israel.
The Israeli foreign minister confirmed that they will, in fact, block Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib from entering the country. President Trump tweeted within the last hour urging Israel to bar them. The president writing in part, it would show great weakness if Israel allowed Representative Omar and Representative Tlaib to visit. They hate Israel and all Jewish people, and there's nothing that can be said or done to change their minds. Minnesota and Michigan will have a hard time putting them back in office. They are a disgrace.
Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib and Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar have gotten themselves banned from Israel. And of course, the media doesn't understand. Liberal Democrats don't understand. Progressives don't understand. Why would these women who hate Israel not be welcome in Israel?
Craig, this is an escalation, essentially, of the ongoing feud between President Trump and these congresswomen. Now, first, a little bit of a fact check. Neither has ever said that they hate Israel or the Israeli people. They have been critical of the Israeli government. They recently voted, in essence, in favor of a boycott of the Israeli state over its treatment of Palestinians. And they have made some controversial comments about Israelis, Omar having to walk back some of those comments.
Well, it's nice to know that NBC is just reporting the facts. They're not interjecting any of their own political ideology or commentary into this is supposed to be a news alert that we're watching. But again, it is simply opinion and commentary. Well, these women have never said anything anti-Semitic. Really? What about when Ilhan Omar tweeted out that the only reason representatives and senators within the United States government supported Israel is it's all about the Benjamins. In other words, give us the money, and accusing fellow lawmakers of engaging in accepting help and interference from foreign governments and placing their allegiance in Israel. Well, of course, Nancy Botox Pelosi has been quick to say that the things that Ilhan Omar says are, yes, they certainly can be taken as abrasive and offensive, but she just really doesn't know what she's saying.
I don't think that that the Congresswoman is perhaps appreciate the full weight of how it was heard by other people, although I don't believe it was intended in any anti-Semitic way. But the fact is, if that's how it was interpreted, we have to remove all doubt, as we have done over and over again.
Wow, really, that's your whole defense? She doesn't understand the weight of her words? Because after all, I've even heard it said of her, she can't help it. She was from Somalia, and they don't have the same understanding of anti-Semitism as we do here in the United States. Hate to correct that little narrative with, what's the word I'm groping for? Facts. But Ilhan Omar has lived in the United States since she was 12 years old. 12. That means she's been here 25 years. Went to American schools. She certainly does understand something about anti-Semitism. And to say that she doesn't understand the weight of her words and what they mean, then obviously serving in the United States Congress is beyond her intelligence level if she doesn't understand that the things that she says and the words that come out of her mouth carry a weight to them, and how will these be perceived by others. But then, of course, you have Rashida Tlaib, who went on a podcast basically saying, hey, the only reason Israel has that country, that landmass, the only reason those Jews are there is because people felt sorry for them after the Holocaust.
It was my ancestors, Palestinians, who lost their land and some lost their lives, their livelihood, the human dignity, their existence in many ways have been wiped out, and some people's passport. I mean, just all of it was in the name of trying to create a safe haven for Jews post the Holocaust, post the tragedy and horrific persecution of Jews across the world at that time.
Well, nothing anti-Semitic there, is there? And, you know, her lack of understanding of history and facts, well, she does understand. But she is engaged in, shall we say, Muslim revisionist history.
Policing my words, twisting and turning them to ignite vile attacks on me will not work. All of you who are trying to silence me will fail miserably. I will never allow you to take my words out of context to push your racist and hateful agenda. The truth will always win. Danny?
Actually, she is the racist, that she is despicable, and she has to learn her history. When she talks about Palestinians' rights, I mean, they're Jewish rights. They were Jewish Palestinians and Arab Palestinians. So in a way, you can say the Independence War 48 started as a civil war where the Arabs, neighbors, tried to kill the Jews. Now, I have to remind her that it was the Palestinian leader. They weren't called even Palestinians, the Arab Palestinians, right? They were Jewish Palestinians. The Arab Palestinian leader, the Mufti al-Husseini, went specially to Berlin to meet with Hitler, inviting him here to kill all the Jews here. So I think she has a lot to learn, and she has to be very, very sensitive and very careful when she talks about the Holocaust.
Boom, there it is. Now, let me just interject something here that other political pundits and even conservative commentators just aren't going to invoke, but I will. It's called the Bible. In Genesis chapter 12, we have what is commonly referred to in theology as the Abrahamic covenant. It was in Genesis chapter 12 where God called a man by the name of Abram to take his family, his entire family, and all that he had, and to just start moving. And when he got to a land that God wanted him to have, God was going to tell him, stop, this is your land. And he was making a covenant with Abraham that he was going to have a people of his own. These people would be known as the Jews. Now, the land is specifically outlined and designated in the Word of God as being given to the Jews, i.e., Israel. Now, you have to understand in the world of theology where Islam is coming from, where the Muslims are coming from. In order for Abraham to be the father of the Jewish nation, he was going to have a child. Well, at the time, his wife Sarah was 90 years old. So Sarah got this bright idea, hey, why don't you take my female servant, you go ahead and you take Hagar and you make a child with her, and that child will be the birth of the nation. Well, of course, Abraham, being a stupid man, did as his wife instructed him, and we have the birth of a kid by the name of Ishmael. Now, this tended to tick off God and make him a little bit upset, because this is not what Abraham told him to do. What Abraham was told to do by God was, you and Sarah will have a child. That male offspring will be the father of my nation. So God allows Sarah, at the age of 90 plus, to give birth to Isaac. Isaac would be the first offspring to be known as the Jews. Ishmael, the offspring of Hagar, became known as the father of the Arab state, Islam. What you have going on over in the Middle East, and I have been saying this for years in the pulpit, is an ongoing feud between two half-brothers vying for the attention of their father Abraham. But the problem in all of this is the fact that God made the covenant with Abraham for a people of his own to be born through Sarah. That's the Jews. That means that little country over there called Israel and the land they sit on, Rashida, it doesn't belong to your people. It's not yours to claim. The Jews had been captured and run out of there multiple times, and the fact that some of your family descendants came in there and became squatters, claiming the land as yours, you can do that all day long, but it's not your land. It's not Islam's land. It's not Arab Palestinian land. It belongs to the Jews. Now, that doesn't stop the reporter at NBC from stating that really what's going on here is Donald Trump got involved and got Netanyahu all upset, and so now he's enacted this ban as a payoff to the president because this is just another attack by this president.
But Craig, look, this comes against a broader backdrop here. The fact that you have President Trump, who has attacked them, along with two other freshman congressmen on Twitter, essentially calling them socialists, calling for them to go back to their countries. You'll remember that. That, of course, sparked that chant during one of his rallies, "Send her back."
Really? So this is just the president's ongoing attack. Let's see. What did Rashida Tlaib say to her constituents the night she was elected?
People love you and you win. And when your son looks at you and says, "Mama, look, you won," bullies don't win. And I said, "Baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there and we're going to impeach them."
So who drew first blood in this so-called attack? And yes, they are anti-Semitic. And yes, they are anti-American. And yes, they are socialist. They are communistic. And you have Ilhan Omar, who equates what Al-Qaeda does as no different than what the United States has done around the world. Really. And that she's tired of having to constantly decry the acts of Al-Qaeda and radical Islamic terrorists. She's tired of that because, after all, 9/11 just wasn't all that big of a deal, and America is no different than Al-Qaeda.
I remember when I was in college, I took a terrorism class, and
is that a such thing?
Yeah, there was.
So you go out, there is a lab for that?
There was a class that you.
Do you go to a lab?
No,
go out a field trip.
We learned the ideology of.
I'm glad you do that.
And so it was the thing that was interesting in the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and
he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah.
He's an expert.
But it is that you don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You don't say the army with an intensity.
Qaeda.
But you say these names because you want that word to carry weight.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Gee, I wonder why Israel wouldn't want these people inside the borders of their nation. Oh, but wait. You have to understand, Israel must, because this alleged reporter brings to this story the same understanding that she and others of the liberal ilk have regarding our own borders. Well, if people want to come here, they have the right to. We can't say no. Israel can't say no. And now she incorporates that same mentality toward Israel.
It's important to point out, Craig, as it relates to this visit to Israel, this is significant because you did have calls from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, including Kevin McCarthy, who said that anyone should be allowed to visit Israel. So this goes against what Republican lawmakers and Republican leadership has said they want to see.
This may be a shock to you over at NBC News and PMSNBC and CNN and the rest of, out in the middle of nowhere, left field, libloon land. Sovereign nations have the right to say who can and can't come inside their borders. Now, what's not noted here is the fact that Israel did say that because Rashida Tlaib has a grandmother who lives in the West Bank and is in poor health, they would lift the ban on her to go specifically to the West Bank to see her grandmother. And Rashida Tlaib has said, no. Okay, fine. So making a political statement is far more important to Ms. Rashida Tlaib than actually seeing her grandmother. Now, it needs to be noted that a month ago, there was a delegation of congressional Democrats who did go to Israel. Omar and Tlaib wouldn't go. They didn't want to go. Refused to go. Had other things to do. Now they're being brought over, or they were supposed to be brought over at the behest and the request as the guest of an anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian hate group. That's not being reported. They didn't have any meetings scheduled while they were supposed to be there with any officials of the Israeli government. They were going there to meet with enemies of Israel to be used as a propaganda photo op. Look, we have lawmakers from the United States standing with us. You know, we tend to call that treasonous. I know John McCain got away with it when he was an alleged POW over in Vietnam and he was, capitulating with the enemy, making radio announcements and television appearances, talking about the vile acts that Americans were committing there in Vietnam against the People's Republic of Vietnam, and we were the invaders, the aggressors, and it was basically all our fault. We were committing horrible atrocities on the Vietnamese people. Yeah, John McCain did that. And, somehow got himself declared a war hero and elected to the United States Senate. Kind of like John Kerry did the same thing. That said, being used as a puppet of an enemy, of an ally of the United States, and now they're trying to spin this in that Benjamin Netanyahu is in the back pocket of Donald Trump, and now here it comes. This will be the new collusion. Let's talk about, though, the genius of Donald Trump in all this. Because what he's done is, once again, he has put what you would call the remaining sane Democrats in a really awkward position. On the one hand, they have to decry the president's tweets and standing in the way of these congresswomen being able to go to Israel. But yet, on the other hand, it forces them to defend these two women. And I really see this 4D chess move that the president is making here. Number one, he really does stand with Israel. He really does believe that they are our number one ally in that region of the world. And we are going to stand with Israel. He believes that. He understands that this is exactly what his base believes, in particular, the Christian evangelical voting bloc of the base. But the president is now making a play for all those good, wealthy, Jewish Democrats who for years have tried to hang in there with Israel, or with the Democratic Party, despite the fact that they continually slam Israel, vote against the interest of Israel. But now you have two Islamic women who are absolutely anti-Semitic to the core. They hate Israel. They want nothing more than to Israel to go away and all of that land to be reverted back to Palestinian control, and i.e. an Islamic State. And the question is, what will these wealthy Jewish Democrat voters do now? Several years ago, a preacher friend of mine was on a flight with a very wealthy Jewish individual who was a staunch Democrat. And so this preacher friend of mine began to walk him through the policies of Democrats toward Israel and walk him through where Republicans, and in particular the conservative Republicans, who have a strong Judeo-Christian heritage and where they support Israel literally, why do the Jews by and large line up with the liberal Democrats? And it was an interesting answer that he got. He said, well, Truman was president when the United States became part of making sure that the Israeli state was reborn in 1948. See, Jewish people are what we call covenant people. God made a covenant with Abraham. And to this day, Jewish people take covenants, contracts very seriously. And so they entered into a covenant with the Democratic Party in 1948 because a Democrat happened to be president. Much like African Americans have this covenant relationship with the Democratic Party because Lyndon Johnson happened to be president during the Civil Rights Movement. Doesn't matter that he wouldn't have gotten the Civil Rights Act through Congress without Republicans, because none of the Southern Democrats would vote for it. The Dixiecrats were vehemently opposed to civil rights. It was the Republicans who made civil rights happen. But that's been forgotten, rewritten by liberal, democratic, revisionist historians. And the same is being true in the understanding of Israel. It has been the conservatives, it has been, if you will, the Christian right that has stood up for and legislated for the alliance and the protection of Israel. The Democrats have voted the exact opposite. And now what Donald Trump is saying to all of you Jewish liberals out there that have aligned yourself with the Democratic Party year after year and election cycle after election cycle, what you going to do now? What you going to do now? You have two members of your party sitting in the United States Congress who just a week ago were openly advocating a boycott of Israel. And then how dare Israel say, you can't come into our country? This is a brilliant move by the president. This is the right move by Benjamin Netanyahu. And now we'll see how Nancy Botox Pelosi tries to spin her way out of this one. Hey, that's it for this rant. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, I hope you're a subscriber. If you're not, please do so. Smack the bell so that you get notifications of all of my rants, my ravings, and my undeniably flawless reasonings. And hey, spread the word about this channel and give us a thumbs up and a big like.